Welcome to Spiritually Raw. We expose and explore controversial truths, myths, and theories surrounding the spirit world. Guests include QAnon experts, investigators, debunkers, and skeptics of the supernatural, unexplained, and flat out unimaginable. Content discussed on this show is not necessarily the opinion of the cast of Spiritually Raw, and topics quite often are for mature audiences only. This show is not intended to replace any medical, financial, or legal advice and is for entertainment purposes only. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
Sherry Divban, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about what the CBD HempWorks products have done for me. Actually, they've changed my life, and let me tell you why. I started drinking the coffee about 2 months ago, and I'm a huge coffee drinker. And so I reluctantly tried it thinking that it's probably not going to taste strong enough, or it's not going to get me motivated in the morning to get moving like my really strong coffee that I've been drinking for decades. And so I tried it. And to my surprise, it was life-changing for me, because what it does is it wakes me up in the morning. I'm so motivated to get my work done. It's inspired me to come up and create an entire children's program that I have been thinking about doing for years. And since I started drinking that coffee, it really just lit a fire in me in such a beautiful way. It's caused me to really activate something inside of me that has laid dormant for so long. And I don't have that crash, later in the day where you feel like, oh, I need to have another cup of coffee, because it really lasts. I take the melatonin as well, and it's really helped me with restful sleep. Running 2 businesses is really hard, and I am waking up all the time in the middle of the night, coming up with class ideas for the kids center. And although it's exciting, I really need my sleep. And so in the morning, if I'm not restful, it's really challenging the next day to get my work done. So the melatonin with CBD really helps me to sleep. And I also take the tinctures throughout the day, the liquid drops when I'm really feeling like I need a boost. And I can't tell you exactly in words really what these CBD products have done for me, but they really have changed my life in such a positive way, because it's activated my intuitive strengths and abilities, and it's really opened pathways inside that I never knew existed. And I just, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, I just can't recommend it enough to incorporate these products in your life in some way, shape, or form, because I've seen the transformation in myself. I've seen the transformation in many other people in my life that have started taking the products. And I really think that it could do something for most people watching this. And so I highly recommend that you find the products that work best for you, because I can pretty much guarantee that you'll find something. You just have to figure out what works and what activates your body that's right for you. So that's my story, and I hope that you guys find this helpful. Thank you for listening.
Hello, everybody. How are you? And welcome to Spiritually Raw. Thank you very, very much for your energy exchange with us today. As always, we hope you woke to the most miracle morning and are also having the most fortunate day today. Preston Dennett is here with us today. 35 years of UFO experience, yeah?
And 28 books on yours belt.
Just a little bit of knowledge there. We're going to find out from his perspective what that all means there. I do want to thank you, before we bring Preston on, for kindly subscribing to the channel, sharing the channel. A lot of you have been doing that, so that's been pretty awesome of you to do that. Thanks. We're really glad you get a lot of value out of this content and great guests that we're bringing over to you. So if you haven't, again, it's that big red button. Just hit it, subscribe it, and turn on the notification bell, and that keeps us connected with you there. You can also follow us on Telegram, where we also post our shows there, so you are notified. Okay, so that's a great place too. So anything else I'm missing?
Nope, that's it.
Think I'm all good. All right, so let's talk about Preston here for a minute. Yeah,
I'd love to. Hi, Preston.
Hi.
Long time no see. You don't call, you don't write.
Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986, when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he's interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomenon. He is a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, or as we know, MUFON. He's a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 28 books and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. Several of his books are, of course, Amazon UFO bestsellers.
All right. Formally join me in welcoming Preston. How are you, my brother? Everything good?
Yeah, everything's great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And first of all, I want to congratulate you for following your passion with consistency. So that's just pretty awesome in itself to see, to see you live out that like that. But so you've been doing this for 35 years. What drew you to this? I mean, that's a pretty heavy connection there that you've gone through. 35 years of research with MUFON, 28 books. What drew you to this where you felt like, okay, this is my calling?
Yeah, well, I can tell you one thing. I never in a million years thought I'd be here doing this. UFOs, I mean, really? Because I did not believe in UFOs. I was kind of repulsed by the subject.
Really?
Yeah, I was dragged into it kicking and screaming. I was not happy at first. I'm happy now, don't get me wrong. But
why did you have such a disinterest, or was it just too woo-woo, too over the top for you?
Yeah, I was very analytically minded. I kind of thought I knew it all. I was into science, the facts, and people would say UFOs. I'm like, well, don't you know how far away the stars are? It's just not possible. And if you think you saw a UFO, you're on drugs. You're lying. You are misperceiving. It's not taught in schools. No one's taking it seriously. Please shut up. But what happened was, I remember it vividly. November 17, 1986. The news comes on, the evening news. We're all sitting there in front of the TV. We've got a pretty large family. I'm one of 6 kids. And I was a young man, 21 years old. And this news report comes on describing this pilot. I now know his name is Kenju Torochi. He had seen a UFO over Alaska while flying over Alaska in a commercial airliner. And this UFO appeared on radar. It tracked his plane for many miles. It's a great case. It's very well known in the field. But the news report was very brief. They just kind of joked about it, talked awkwardly for a few minutes, and moved on. I thought to myself, this poor, stupid pilot, he is deluded, and he's throwing his career away over something that he is not what he thinks it is. I was wrong, of course, but it interested me. And I'm like, why would he do that? Why would he throw away his career? Which he ended up doing. He was grounded after this.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right? So this was a big case. But I remember, hearing this report, I sparked a memory. My brother Mark had seen a UFO. He said, I was like 13, maybe 14 years old. He comes running into the house. We're all kind of sitting around the kitchen table. He's like, I saw a UFO. And I looked up at him. I'm like, oh, God, really, Mark? And I didn't even listen. I just did not listen. And so this time I'm hearing this report in the news. I somehow went over to Mark for whatever reason. And I'm like, you said you saw a UFO, right? He's like, yeah, I told you. And I'm like, well, what did you see? And he described this incredible sighting. It was really close up, metallic saucer-like object, a dome, colored lights.
How close up was he?
Very close. It was right up, I'm going to say 100 feet or so.
That's close.
That's close.
That's close.
Very close. Yeah.
How big was it?
50 feet, not small. It was a sizable craft.
Yeah.
And at treetop level, and clearly showing itself off to him and his 2 friends, as it turned out. They were all 3 in the Volkswagen bus, our family car. And he chased it down Reseda Boulevard, for 20 minutes or so. So this was clearly a display. It was clearly showing itself off on purpose to him. And I'm like, wow, are you kidding me? I could tell he wasn't lying. It was clear he wasn't misperceiving. I just couldn't quite wrap my head around this being an alien craft. He's like, come on, Press. I mean, you don't believe me. You know Greg, you know Phil, his friends. Talk to them. I'm like, okay, give me their numbers. I knew them. And so I did. I ended up calling them. And they described the same thing. And I'm like, huh. So I started asking other family members. None of my other brothers and sisters had seen one. They kind of looked at me strangely when I asked. My sister always believed in them. Some did not. But I found out that my sister-in-law had seen one right over Van Nuys Air Force Base, these 3 lights in a triangular formation. And I'm like, really? She's like, oh, yeah, they were there for a while. We saw it right outside my house. Adley was there. You know him, right, my friend? I'm like, yeah. Can I talk to him? She's like, yeah, go ahead. And so I found another family friend, Sylvia. She's a pilot, a flight instructor, a scuba diver, a good witness. And she described this egg-shaped object low over her home. She had been drawn outside by this low buzzing noise.
What part of the country do you live in? Is it the
at the time, this was in Topanga Canyon. This is Southern California.
Okay.
Turns out it's a pretty active area for UFOs. Yeah. I mean, I actually heard reports on the news later about Topanga. I'm like, what? I grew up here.
Yeah.
I never saw anything.
So when you're starting to get affirmations from your friends, your siblings' friends, and then other contacts that you have, is that when you started to feel like, I need to just dig deeper into it? Or did you push a lot harder at that point in time, or did you let it go for a while?
No, I started to push hard pretty quickly, especially when I brought it up at work, and that was a mistake. Because
there goes your promotion.
Did you get fired?
No, actually, everyone was really supportive because a number of them had seen UFOs. The lady I worked with for years and years and years described this incredible encounter, and her whole family saw it, this star-like object. And the daughter ended up having an encounter with Grays, face to face, taken on board, fully conscious, remembered the whole thing. And Diane.
What did she feel like when she was taking Preston on board? Was she scared? Was it a sense of peace? Did she give any sense of emotion there that she was going through at that time?
It initially started out pretty scary. She says that their appearance frightened her. Very leathery looking skin, wrinkled. I mean, it was a gray. And it's like, you come with us. And she says, no, I have a job. What do you mean, come with you? I've got a boyfriend. I can't go. And she found herself on board. And they're like, we need to cut your arm. She's like, don't cut my arm. And they did. And they said, we're going to do an operation on your brain. And that sent her over the edge. She passed out.
And then what happened?
She woke up in the morning. There was a scar on her arm. She showed it to me. I'm like, wow, the day after I saw it. And she ended up having further encounters, talking to them. She says she felt that they were religious. She felt that, or certainly interested in her religion.
Which was what? What was her religion?
I believe she's Christian. She wasn't like super religious, but she did go to church.
Did they give her any idea why they went to her, number one, but then why there was a recurring theme with her?
And what did they do to her brain? The operation.
She never found out about the brain thing, but they did seem to be very interested in her personal life. They gave her actually information, predictions. Said she would get a raise at work. Her relationship with her boyfriend would work out. And they were very interested in, her personally, which I found interesting. She's like, ended up being fine with it. She says, my only problem is I just wish they would come during the day, sort of knock on the door, not scare the bejesus out of her by coming in her room at night.
That'll scare the bejesus out of you. It's interesting. And you authored Wondrous, 25 True UFO Encounters of people who have had extensive experiences. And I was reading through some of them, and I just want to touch on a couple of them. A young couple expecting their first child discovered that extraterrestrials have taken their baby. Did they get the baby back? What happened there?
Yeah, this was quite an interesting and extensive case. And it's got, some similarities to cases I've certainly researched before, but this one's a little bit of an outlier. This was 2006. A young couple had just moved to Canada. The wife was from Europe, so she was having some trouble with her citizenship and red tape, and the house needed repairs. They were starting a new business. They had a lot going on when they became pregnant, and it was all good news, of course. They verified the pregnancy. It proceeded normally, and they built a nursery, informed their family. And it was about 7 months into the pregnancy. They'd seen a midwife. They were going to have a natural pregnancy. Had gone to the doctor, heard the heartbeat a number of times. So this was a full-on verified pregnancy. They sent me, some of these medical reports verifying this.
Mm-hmm.
And 7 months in, they're driving to a friend's house when suddenly they got disoriented. It's an hour-long trip, and the next thing they know, they're arriving a little bit earlier than they should have. They had missing time in a weird way.
That is a weird way that they're actually arriving earlier too.
Yeah, I mean, normally I hear this like they arrived late, but no, they got there earlier than they should have, which made zero sense to them. And they could not understand or categorize or even make sense of it. So they just kind of shrugged it off. But it was 7.5 months into the pregnancy, and something very strange happened. They were in their bedroom, and an electrical storm came down over their house. It was very severe, and they started to get a little bit frightened. So, because the lightning was like crashing down in their backyard. So he jumps up and goes to close the window, and he sees like weird lightning coming sideways across right in front of the window. That freaked him out. This was not normal lightning. And he slams the window closed, jumps into bed, and they're kind of adrenaline is pumping, and they're like, holding on to each other. Next thing they know, it's morning. They had somehow fallen asleep, which was weird because they were a little bit scared. And she wakes up. They both felt kind of anesthetized, a little bit, sedated, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like coming out of surgery is how she described it.
Mm.
And she's like, honey, I don't feel pregnant.
Oh my God.
And he's like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
And she's like, look at my stomach. Does it look, less large? Does it look smaller? And he's like, yeah, it does. Their baby had been in a breech position, and they were doing exercises. She was to sort of encourage the baby to move to the right position. And they thought, well, maybe that's it. They called their midwife. The midwife could not get a heartbeat. She was very concerned. So she should go to the doctor. They had a doctor's appointment in 3 days. They moved it up and went to the doctor. I think I don't know if it was that day or the next day, but it was pretty much right away. And the doctor started doing the tests and not saying anything, but obviously being concerned. And finally turned to them and says, you are not pregnant.
Oh my God.
How long has she been carrying the baby before?
7.5 months.
Yeah.
7.5 months. So what
That
was
is devastating beyond comprehension.
Yeah, they both started weeping. They were both upset. And they're like, what do you mean we're not pregnant? What do you mean? We've heard the heartbeat. We've got what are you talking about? You must be mistaken. He's like, no, I'm sorry. Maybe there was a misdiagnosis. There might be disciplinary action. There'll be an investigation, but you're not pregnant. And they asked, did you spontaneously abort, in the evening? And she said, no. She said, no. All right. She's like, are you sure? Any tissues? And did you see anything? I'm like, no, nothing happened.
Bleeding, there was nothing. When she woke up the next day, nothing, no scarring, just
vanished, poof.
Completely vanished, just like that.
How did how did they reconcile that mentally?
Initially, they were both pretty upset, and especially the husband, for whatever reason, he took it real hard. But she had this very strong intuitive feeling that her baby was all right. And she kind of had a sense of what happened. And as I talked to them, I'm like, well, because they started searching the internet to find out, disappearing pregnancies. How could something like this occur?
Yeah.
That's 7.5 months. This is not like a pregnancy being absorbed,
Mm-hmm.
which is, a thing apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And they came across the subject of, the missing fetus syndrome, as it's called in the UFO field. And I thought, because she does have a history of UFO encounters. As I asked him, I'm like, well, have you seen a UFO? And he said, oh yeah, I have. He saw 2 UFOs, in fact, as has his father. And she says, well, no, I haven't, but I do have light beings who enter into my room periodically.
Oh my heavens.
I'm like, what? Light beings? She's like, yeah, I don't know what they are. They're glowing figures. I assume they're ETs. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, now we're getting somewhere.
Did she ever get the chance to meet the baby? Have they ever had that
As of now,
experience?
not yet. Preston, I want to ask you this.
That's a hard one.
That is a hard one. You got a lot of encounters there, and I'm sure a lot of people could check that on your
Seen
website.
a mantis?
Yeah, but there's a 15-foot tall mantis. I mean, just dire warnings for mankind. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. You yourself personally, so I appreciate you sharing the third party information that you've uncovered. You yourself personally, Preston, have you had any encounters yourself? Have you?
I'm wondering what this little picture is
and
behind
I was
you.
going to ask you that. And is there any association with that picture behind you?
Yeah, this one is a case I recently investigated. In fact, it's in the book, Wondrous. That's based on, the eyewitness description, which, I drew it myself because just trying to get a sense of what this being looked like. I have had encounters.
Pretty good artistic thing there, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, suddenly had an impulse to start drawing. So who knew?
What about you though? Have you had any firsthand experiences yourself where you've actually seen, witnessed, or had any type of communication with extraterrestrial, or has this all been a research for you still?
It started out as pure research and pretty much denied any personal involvement. But I did feel a very strong obsession with this subject, and I looked into my past. I'm like, why am I obsessed? Why can't I let this go? And I think part of it is my family is definitely involved. I do have 2 sister-in-laws who have had face-to-face encounters with ETs, one with grays, one with little blue beings. 2 of my nephews have had close-up sightings. One had an encounter with humanoids. It is in my family. And it was just...
Why do you think it's in your family or in your genetic pool? Is there a reason that you've nailed down?
No, I don't quite understand it. I do know that this phenomenon attracts families.
Family specific. So
yeah, generationally speaking.
So
but
you yourself, though, again, I just want to get clarity. You yourself are still awaiting to see one personally.
No, I've seen them. I have.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you have seen them. What was it when you first saw one personally? I mean, how long's that been? When was that first sighting for you, as far as Preston's concerned?
I didn't have to wait long. I'm the kind of guy who, like, I wanted to see him. I'm like, yeah, it's all well and good to hear it from my brother and my sister and my friends and coworkers, but that is not the same as seeing one yourself. Mm-hmm. So sure. I was out there in the fields tromping around late at night where when someone said they saw a UFO, I was there. I'm like, all right, where are you? Hey. And actually I didn't have to wait long. And it turned out to be a very weird coincidence. Well, I'll call it a coincidence. I don't think it was. I think they knew about me. They targeted me because what happened was this was 86 is when I got into the field, kind of buckled down in 88. Got my field investigators, took the test, which was really difficult, and formally interviewed people, recording it, and just really getting heavy duty into this. Bought all the books, joined every UFO group, attended all the meetings, went to conventions. I was obsessed, and still am. But yeah, I was at my brother's house in Woodland Hills. I lived in Canoga Park. I had just moved out of Topanga, and I stayed there late into the night talking about UFOs, trying to deal with this idea that the Earth is being invaded by aliens.
Do you
no,
feel that
and
way? Do you feel like
I was just gonna ask you that.
are we being invaded from what your research, your 35 years of research has shown you, or are they what's a good one? Benevolent?
Benevolent.
Are they benevolent?
Well, they can also be benevolent and also invading, but do you think that either side of it, benevolent or benevolent, are they invading our world?
it's probably not the word I would use now. It was the word I was using then because I wasn't happy. I'm like, what? People are being kidnapped? Is this against their will? They're being taken on board, and by these very bug-like creatures.
Yeah.
And they're medically experimenting on them. I wasn't like, what is going on? I don't feel that way now. I mean, it's clear they've been around for millennia. And I do think they're largely benevolent. And it's not just like my belief. I can back this up with hard facts. They get a bad rap. They are, I don't think they're hostile. I don't think they're here to take over. I think if you actually look objectively at what happens when someone's taken on board, it's very encouraging. And we can get into that. But yeah, I did have an encounter.
Question about that. Are people being taken against their will, or is it something that they have created in their contract, so to speak, before they reincarnated on the earth plane?
Yeah, I think that is correct. And it's a little bit of a cop-out for some experiencers who are like, wait a second, I did not consciously allow this. And this is a little bit complicated because I think when it comes to human beings, we have a compartmentalized consciousness. We have our ego, and it's not our whole selves. We fall unconscious at night, and we're out there on the astral planes exploring and doing things, and we're not even aware of it.
And do you think when we're unconscious at night, do you think pretty much that's where we're kind of unconsciously grabbed, explored?
Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
But my point is that people aren't aware of their whole brains, sort of their whole minds. And ETs come down and they're talking to people, and the larger part of them is like, yeah, this is fine. I'll be contacted. I'll go through your thing for you. There's a trade-off, certainly.
What do you think, Preston, it is they're trying to want to share with us? So they've gotten like you said, they've gotten a bad rap. What do you think they actually try to want to share with us? What are they here for?
Yeah, I think we've got a really good handle actually on the alien agenda, and my own research is, I think, borne out by other researchers, particularly the ones who really look into the contact experience. I would point to Barbara Lamb in particular. She's done hundreds upon hundreds of hypnotic regressions. I don't do hypnosis. I think it works, but I've dealt with, basically people who've had conscious experiences. But yeah, when someone's taken on board, they're physically examined. That's the most common thing. And that's probably the scariest part for most people. But often what's happening is they're being physically healed. This is the subject of one of my books. I've got 300 accounts of people who have been physically healed of you name it, colds to cancer. I am serious.
Were they
Interesting.
the people that were physically healed? Is there any type of, how I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this? Okay, is there any type of that they were calling out, reaching out? Was there when you interviewed these people? Was there any type of like we were praying? Maybe we were looking for like a last resort kind of thing, and that's what happened. Was there any common denominator there? Or was that the healing's just random?
We'd like to share a story. While it may sound fictional, it's very real and happening right now in front of our very eyes. It's called The Great Awakening. Our sisters and brothers that come on Spiritually Raw are doing everything to help expand global consciousness, and in many cases putting everything on the line to share their messages about what's happening around the world for the greater good of humanity, while exposing the truth of the deep state and the dark forces behind it all. We are living in the most unbelievable times. Some may even say biblical, scary for many and yet exhilarating for others. Together we are taking part in getting everyone acclimated to the Great Awakening process and the exciting new discoveries that lie ahead. The sad part is many of our amazing guests are being heavily censored, socially shamed, and outright banned on many platforms for exposing the truth and piercing the veil. By becoming a viewer, you bring your powerful energy towards this global movement of other truth seekers. If you're resonating with our show, please let us know by hitting the like button, sharing, subscribing, turn on the notification, and leave some comments. Together, we will turn the universal key to global harmony and create a unified world. And remember, tune in often, tell all your friends, and most importantly, may all your dreams come true. Thanks, and God bless Patriots worldwide.